I thought I was choosing peace. But what I got was loneliness, loss, and a life I barely recognized. No one warned me. No one told me the truth. Until now. When I moved into a nursing home, I believed I was making a wise, responsible decision. I thought I was stepping into safety, into care, into peace for my final years. But what I actually stepped into was something I never expected. The glossy brochures, the polite tours, the promises of comfort, they didn't prepare me for the quiet heartbreak that waited behind those walls. They didn't tell me how much I'd lose, not just in comfort, but in dignity, in control, in identity. This isn't just my story. It's a message to you, to your family, to anyone thinking about making this life-changing move. Because once you're inside, the world gets smaller, and sometimes, that decision can't be undone. In this video, I'll share the 7 painful, personal truths I wish I had known before entering a nursing home. If you're considering this path, or know someone who is, please, hear me out. It could change everything. 1. Loss of independence. When I moved into the nursing home, I told myself it was the right thing to do. I thought I was choosing safety, structure, and peace of mind. But within just a few weeks, the most painful truth hit me. I had lost my independence. And I hadn't even realized how much it meant to me, until it was gone. You don't notice how many little decisions you make each day until you no longer have the power to make them. Simple things, like deciding when to wake up, what to wear, when to take a shower, or what to eat, used to be mine. My choices. My routines. But the moment I entered that facility, everything began revolving around someone else's schedule. Want to sleep in because you had a rough night? Sorry, wake-up rounds start at 6:30 a.m. Feel like a cup of tea before bed? Not allowed, snack time ended hours ago. Craving a walk outside to clear your head? Only if someone is available to accompany you, and that's rarely the case. Even deeply personal things, like how often I shower, when I can have privacy, or what kind of activities I want to do, were no longer up to me. I became part of a system designed for efficiency, not individuality. The staff, bless their hearts, were kind, but overworked. They didn't have time to cater to personal preferences or small comforts. I started feeling less like a person and more like a patient. More like a task to be managed than a life to be lived. There's something deeply human about having control over your own life. About being able to choose your pace, your priorities, your pleasures. When that's taken away, piece by piece, it does something to your spirit. It makes you question who you are without those choices. And here's the truth no one tells you. Independence isn't just about doing things on your own. It's about having the freedom to live on your own terms. It's about dignity. And when that dignity is taken away, even by well-meaning caregivers and efficient systems, it leaves behind a hollow ache. I don't blame anyone. But I do wish I had been warned. Because the hardest part of living in a nursing home wasn't the food, or the noise, or the routines. It was losing the freedom to simply be me, and once you lose that, you begin to disappear. 2. Emotional loneliness despite being surrounded by people. When I first moved into the nursing home, I thought being around others would bring me comfort. After all, I'd be surrounded by people, nurses, caregivers, other residents. I imagined cheerful conversations in the dining room, friendly games of cards, someone to talk to when I felt down. But what no one warned me about is how lonely you can feel, even in a crowded room. Yes, the staff were present. Yes, the halls were filled with people. But something was missing. Connection. Real, human connection. Most conversations with staff were short and clinical. Time for your medication, or, let's get you to lunch. There was no time to ask how I was really feeling. No time to listen if I tried to share. They were doing their jobs, checking boxes, rushing off to the next person. I don't blame them. They were overwhelmed. But it left me feeling invisible. And the other residents? Many were in their own worlds. Some couldn't speak clearly anymore. Others were too tired, too sad, or too far gone to connect. I tried to make friends. But it's hard to bond when everyone is grieving something. Their independence, their health, their home. I missed the small things. The spontaneous phone calls with my daughter. The laughter of my grandchildren in the background. The comfort of sitting at my own kitchen table, sipping tea, knowing that I was exactly where I belonged. In the nursing home, every day felt the same. The walls stayed quiet, the television played on repeat, and the silence grew louder in my heart. Even holidays felt hollow. A few decorations here and there, maybe a special meal, but no real celebration. No warmth. Just more routine. And while my family promised to visit often, life got busy. The visits became shorter. Less frequent. Sometimes they'd come by distracted, checking their phones, trying to squeeze in time between errands. I know they meant well. But the distance grew, emotionally and physically. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. That's the kind of loneliness they don't tell you about. The kind that sinks in quietly. The kind that makes you question if anyone still really sees you. We talk so much about meeting physical needs. But emotional needs matter just as much. Maybe even more. Because when your heart starts to feel empty, it doesn't matter how full the room is. 3. Lack of personalized care. Before I moved into the nursing home, I believed I would be cared for like family. I imagined gentle voices, warm touches, and caregivers who'd learn my habits, my quirks, even my favorite songs. I thought I'd be seen not just as someone who needed help, but as someone worth knowing. But what I found was something very different. The care I received wasn't cruel or neglectful, it was just mechanical. Rushed. Impersonal. It was care designed for checklists, not for people. Every day, caregivers moved from room to room with their carts and charts, blood pressure, medication, meals, repeat. They were kind, yes. But they didn't really know me. Not the way a daughter knows her mother. Not even the way a neighbor knows your morning coffee order. I became one of many. Just another routine in a long shift. They didn't know that I need time to gather my thoughts before I speak. That I prefer silence over background noise. That I feel anxious when my room gets cluttered. They didn't know that a warm blanket over my legs makes me feel safe. Or that I like my toast lightly golden, never burnt. These small details may sound insignificant. But they're the things that make us feel human. They're how we're seen, how we're loved. And when they're ignored, even unintentionally, you begin to feel like a body to be managed instead of a person to be known. There were days when I sat in pain, quietly, because I didn't want to bother anyone. Other times, I skipped meals just to avoid the confusion of asking for a simple change to my plate. And sometimes I just stayed silent, because I didn't have the energy to explain myself to someone who wouldn't remember it tomorrow. I don't blame the staff. Many of them were doing their best. But the truth is, the system isn't built for personal care, it's built for efficiency. There's simply not enough time, not enough hands, not enough heart to go around. But that doesn't make the loss any less real. When you've spent a lifetime building your identity, through work, family, routines, and little preferences, being treated like a checklist is deeply painful. Because care isn't just about keeping someone alive. It's about making them feel alive. It's about being seen, heard, and valued, even when you're old, even when you're frail. And in that nursing home, I stopped feeling like someone worth remembering. 4. Loss of financial control. I spent most of my life being careful with money. I clipped coupons. Skipped luxuries. Paid off my mortgage. I thought if I planned well enough, I'd never have to worry. I wanted to enjoy my later years with dignity, treat myself now and then, maybe leave something behind for my grandchildren. But when I moved into the nursing home, all of that changed. At first, the monthly fee didn't seem too bad. Expensive, yes, but I thought it covered everything. I was wrong. There were charges I hadn't expected. Medication handling fees. Laundry surcharges. Transportation costs to doctor appointments. Even small things, like getting a haircut on site, came with an added price tag. No one warned me how quickly it would add up. Before long, I was watching my savings shrink. I started to hesitate before buying even the smallest things. A birthday card. A new pair of slippers. A favorite magazine. I wasn't living large, I was just trying to hold onto the little joys I'd always taken for granted. But what hurt most wasn't the money, it was losing control of it. My finances were now managed by others, facility staff, appointed guardians, or family members trying to help. Sometimes I had to ask permission to access my own money. Other times, I didn't even know what had been spent until the end of the month. I went from being the person who paid the bills, to someone waiting for approval to buy a tube of toothpaste. And when questions came up, when I noticed charges I didn't understand or wanted to make changes, it was like yelling into the wind. Policies. Delays. We'll look into it, but rarely any answers. The independence I'd built over a lifetime, gone. And the hardest truth? Once the money runs out, your options vanish too. You don't get choices anymore. You don't get the nicer room, or the upgraded meals, or even the small comforts you used to afford. Your whole world shrinks, not just physically, but financially. No one told me that. No one sat me down and said, you might lose more than your home. You might lose the freedom to decide how you spend the rest of your life. I wish I had known. I wish someone had warned me. Because once you give up financial control in a nursing home, it's not easy to get it back. 5. Feeling like a patient, not a person. Before I moved into the nursing home, I was a person with a story. I was a father, a teacher, a church volunteer, a neighbor who brought banana bread to new families on the block. I had favorite books, a stubborn knee that always acted up in the rain, and a voice that used to calm my children to sleep. But once I crossed that threshold, something shifted. I became a file. A diagnosis. A room number. Room 314, mobility issues, mild dementia, blood pressure meds, diabetic. That's how I was introduced. That's how I was known. From day one, I was measured, monitored, and managed. Blood pressure at 7 a.m., pills at 9. Lunch at noon. Another round of meds at 3. Repeat tomorrow. And the next day. And the next. I don't blame the staff, they were doing what they were trained to do. But it broke something inside me, because in all that care, no one ever asked who I was. No one asked what I used to do for a living. What song makes me cry? What I missed most about my old life. No one remembered my name without checking a clipboard. I felt invisible. Not just to others, but slowly, to myself. Over time, I stopped correcting them when they mispronounced my name. I stopped mentioning when something didn't feel right. I stopped sharing stories about my grandchildren or the garden I used to tend. I began to shrink. Not physically, but emotionally. Spiritually. Because when you're treated like a patient all day, every day, you start to forget that you're anything else. I didn't want to be difficult, so I stayed quiet. I didn't want to be labeled non-compliant, so I nodded even when I disagreed. I became passive, polite, forgettable. And in doing so, I lost something I never thought I'd lose, myself. It's hard to explain this kind of pain. It's not loud. It doesn't bruise or bleed. It's quiet. A slow erosion of your identity, your pride, your personhood. I wasn't looking for perfection. I wasn't expecting luxury. All I wanted was to be treated like a whole person. Someone with history. With feelings. With worth. But in a place designed to heal the body, the soul is too often overlooked. And that, I think, is the greatest wound of all. 6. Rigid routines that don't fit your life. One of the first things I noticed after moving into the nursing home was the clock. Not the one on the wall, but the invisible one that now ruled my every move. Back in my own home, I lived on my time. I woke up when my body felt rested. I made coffee and read the paper in peace. If I wanted to nap at noon or stay up late watching old westerns, I could. I lived according to what felt right, not a schedule. But that all changed the moment I stepped into facility life. Wake-up calls at 6:30 a.m., whether you slept well or not. Breakfast by 7 sharp. Meds at 8. Bathing twice a week, only on designated days. Lights out at 9, even if your mind is still wide awake. Everything from bathroom breaks to bingo time is planned to the minute. I wasn't just adjusting to a new space, I was adjusting to someone else's idea of how I should live. At first, I tried to be flexible. I told myself, this is just part of the routine. It'll get easier. But it didn't. The days became mechanical, predictable, repetitive, and worst of all, empty. There was no room for spontaneity. No space to say, I'm not hungry right now, or, can I take a walk first? If you missed your window, too bad. If you asked to do something differently, be ready for a lecture on policy or safety. I started to feel like a cog in a machine rather than a living, breathing person. Even when I asked for small changes, like having tea instead of coffee in the morning, or reading quietly instead of joining group activities, I could see the disapproval in their eyes. I was breaking the flow, causing disruption. But I wasn't trying to be difficult. I was just trying to hold onto the little bits of autonomy that made me feel human. In a place where the clock never stops ticking, where days are dictated by staff availability and shift rotations, your personal rhythm is erased. Your needs get squeezed into time slots. Your individuality is something to be managed, not celebrated. And that's what hurts the most. Because it's not just about schedules, it's about soul. When your life is lived by someone else's clock, you begin to lose your own sense of time, purpose, and identity. And in that slow, quiet loss, you begin to forget what freedom even feels like. 7. Regret over not exploring alternatives. If I could go back, just once, I would stop myself at the door. I would pause. I would ask more questions. I would take a deeper breath and say, wait, are there other options? Because the truth is, I rushed. I thought I was being practical, responsible. I told myself that moving into a nursing home was the right thing, the safe thing. I didn't want to be a burden on my family. I didn't want to admit I was struggling. I thought I was preserving my dignity. But what I didn't realize is that in trying to protect everyone else, I forgot to protect myself. No one told me that in-home care has come so far. That trained caregivers can now help you bathe, eat, take your medication, and even clean your home. All while you stay surrounded by your memories, your favorite chair, your pet curled at your feet. No one explained that assisted living communities offer more freedom and privacy, with real apartments and activities you actually choose. I didn't understand that some seniors now move in with their children, not as burdens, but as family, part of multi-generational homes filled with warmth and laughter. I never explored those choices. I thought nursing homes were the only path. The final chapter. The safe zone. But safety isn't the same as living. Here, I'm safe, but at what cost? I miss the smell of my kitchen. The familiar creak of the floorboard in the hallway. The plants I used to talk to while watering them. I miss calling out to the neighbor across the fence. I miss belonging to something. In this place, I exist. But I no longer live. And that's the regret that keeps me up at night. Not the facility itself. Not the staff. Not the structure. The regret is in not asking. Not reaching out. Not giving myself the right to choose something different. I know there are others out there, seniors, families, who are standing where I once stood, on the edge of this decision. To them, I say, don't rush. Don't assume. Don't settle. Ask questions. Explore all your options. Talk openly with your children. Let them see your fear, your hopes, your need for real life, not just a safe one. Because once you move in here, leaving isn't as easy as walking back out the door. I didn't know that then. But I hope, with all my heart, that you know it now. Looking back, I don't share my regrets out of bitterness. I share them because I care. Because I know what it feels like to make a decision with hope in your heart, only to find heartbreak waiting at the other end. The loss of independence, the emotional loneliness, the cold routines, the fading of your identity, it doesn't happen all at once. It creeps in slowly, day by day, until you realize, you're no longer living. You're just existing. If you're standing where I once stood, don't be afraid to ask hard questions. Don't be afraid to explore alternatives. Because no matter your age, you deserve more than safety, you deserve to feel alive. If this story opened your eyes or touched your heart, please don't let it stop here. Right finger like this video so it reaches others who may need to hear the truth. Speaking head, share it with your parents, your siblings, your friends. Someone is facing this choice right now. Speech balloon, comment below if you've experienced something similar. Your story could help someone feel less alone. Bell and subscribe for more honest, life-changing stories that put seniors and their families first. You're not alone. Your voice matters. And your life still has so much worth.